Last night, we took you up into the great beyond. We hoped we pushed back your horizons. We took you to the mountain tops, to the miraculous mansions of what is and what is to come, when the supreme forces of innate are tapped into a free flow into the human races. Tonight, we will portray for you who and how it is being burned down and what you can do to prevent such. And to that end, I am calling out the fire department. Most NCA schools are begging for support. One asked the state medical board to support it. Another was supported by one association until the association withdrew its funds. Another is heavily in debt with a reduction in enrollments year by year, struggling along, and doesn't know when it will close its doors. Another is begging for handouts, eking along one semester to another. Two others are ready to fold any month, students not knowing whether or not to enroll there. Most of these schools know little, if anything, about the basic fundamentals of the philosophy of chiropractic. They're teaching anything and everything: physiotherapy, naturopathy, vitamins, pro-medical subjects. And that has been their downfall. One school closed its doors within the past month. It is now trying to peddle its 30 students to another school. Another school has 55 students and owes $90,000 with no prospects of it ever being paid. Another school has 7 students, closed, and auctioned off its equipment a short time ago. Another school is $18,000 in debt and heavily mortgaged. Its enrollment is down 1/2 less this year than last. Another school had 3 students in their last semester. 19.5% of the North American Association of Schools and Colleges could not meet the 2-year pre-collegiate provision that the NCA urges all to adopt. Do you realize that means a drop of 80%? The NCA calls all of these that I have mentioned as successful steps upward, decreasing our schools' enrollments. What do you think? Do you think that's successful? What about today? The North American Associations and its accredited chiropractic schools teach a philosophy, science and art, of an all-inclusive chiropractic and an all-exclusive everything medical. Page 24 of the August 1958 NCA Journal contains this statement, quoting, "Further in an effort to renew interest and support of the now existing colleges, the doctor in the field is beseeched to search his heart to see if he is really supporting, if not his own alma mater, then at least one of the accredited colleges. That's the end of the quote. Note that one language to renew interest is to understand that chiropractic schools owe a chiropractic obligation to the field, and the chiropractic field owes an obligation to chiropractic schools. If it were not for their schools, the field wouldn't be. How aptly that statement, now existing colleges, many of them are existing, not living or thriving. You notice he said to beseech his heart means less than nothing. The heart is but a chunk of muscles that pumps oxygen in, carbon dioxide out. If the field will search their innates, they'll get the proper answers. Our schools are not supported by private or public endowments or state taxes. To fill the stop gaps, the NCA accredited only those schools which were non-profit. Today, they have proven to be non-profit, which is one of two reasons why they are folding up. A non-profit school pays no state, national, or income tax, which permits the faculty to drain its incomes in high salaries, which reduces instruction value, which reduces enrollments, which eventually reduces and closes the schools. Non-profit. All chiropractors should support chiropractic schools. It is an eye-opener to realize it is discouraging to see the NCA accredited schools, one after another, on the downgrade, asking for handouts to support them, begging for nickels and dimes, when it costs thousands to keep anyone going for even a month. The financial reports of these NCA accredited schools is not promising. The NCA have been endeavoring to stop all chiropractic publicity other than merely a name, office address, phone number in city directories, and phone books. They try to eliminate all publicity. They want to go professional, like medical men. They ask state boards to rule out educational publicity. You know, and we know, that the public must be educated. That is what put all of us where we are. Imagine what would occur if all publicity and educational had been stopped, or was stopped, or will be stopped today. They don't want you to say what school you're from or any other reputable institution. They want you to eliminate any name of anything that you may use in your practice. The NCA Journal would not object if you advertised any or all of the 118 medical methods they advertise. The codes of ethics, when the chiropractor is chiropractic, what is objectionable to it? None, providing that profession is ethical. Every chiropractor has built his business in exact ratio as his clientele was educated to come to him, then educated after they were with him, and kept on educating after they left, so they could educate others and more people to come to it. Medical men get gobs of free publicity. Educate. It pays dividends. Be sure that, however, that what you educate is not chiropractic, but the principle. Don't help medical chiropractors to advertise medicines in the name of chiropractic. Any village, city, state, or nation has millions who have never even heard the name, much less know what chiropractic is. They think possibly we may punch back bones for backaches. Millions of people are sick. Medical men keep manufacturing business for us. As long as there is one medical man in business, there is a need for one chiropractor to follow in his footsteps. Our success was and is based on millions of educational material. This is no time to reduce. It is time to increase educational campaigns. Now, I know somebody's going to beat me to the punch who will say, well, he has a printing plant. He prints the stuff and sells it. You're right. However, there's something bigger than owning a printing plant and selling educational matter. It's those millions out there in those great big wide open spaces who are suffering, begging, pleading, praying to know what you do and to get what you have to give. This can occur if you sell them long enough and often enough. Follow in the footsteps of the NCA, you'll starve to death for the want of patience. Medical men would be delighted if they could stop our publicity and public relations. Why should they, when the NCA wants to do it for us? The burden is getting heavier because of the tactics used by the NCA. Sacrificing the tick by persuading Tor that he will profit more by becoming a second-handed or third-rate practitioner of medical principles and methods. Ironically, as chiropractors are encouraged by the NCA to become medical practitioners, the AMA Journal and other medical publications are encouraging medical men to investigate and use chiropractic. We won victory after victory in years past in our campaigns to establish chiropractic as a separate and distinct health service to the sick. We won because we had courage and convictions. We won because the chiropractic principle and practice got sick people well after other methods failed. Regardless of what the NCA says to the contrary, the tick has not failed the Tor. It is the Tor who has failed the tick that threatens our healthy growth and perpetuations of tick as a service to the sick. You and we have fought for that tick. We'll continue to fight as long as innate gives us power to do so. But we need your help, even more so than in earlier years. We need the strength and support of the newer generation who know that the tick must be perpetuated. Today, it still is here, in many places, in many of our people. Tomorrow, unless the betrayal of chiropractic programs are stopped, chiropractic as a health service to the sick generally and gradually will disappear, because the tick will have evolved into a mess of conflicting principles and practices. The NCA legislative program and its so-called progressive practice procedures is leading to the ultimate sacrifice of the tick. It's a case of where the innate in the head, from above down, inside out, tells the body how to wag the tail of the chiropractic dog. But the NCA, through a small group of medically minded men, are legislatively tickling the tip of the tail of the dog from outside in, below up, so the tickling stimuli can tell the body, so the body can tell the head, so the head can tell innate how to wag the tail of our chiropractic dog. It never has been a question of who was right, but what was right. What has been prominent in producing these decreases in our profession? 4-year courses, basic science bills, state boards, and subjects deemed unnecessary. 2-year pre-collegiate training is said to be essential. While the NCA was piling on more time, more subjects, building up a gigantic educational program for NCA conventions to absorb and support, the AMA was cutting down time, subjects, and costs to produce more MDs. And someday those roads will cross. These super educational features were never necessary in the olden days. Neither are they helpful today. Most now are far flung from any relation to the chiropractic subluxation or its adjustment, which got sick people well then or now. 2 years of pre-collegiate training conducted by men trained in medicine, weans those prospects away from us, not towards us. What little they get of chiropractic in some of our schools is still highly diluted with wasted time on foreign subjects, having no bearing on the vertebral subluxation or its adjustment. To make rapid this downfall, the NCA is forcing our profession to take on legislative crutches, filling students' brains with useless and worthless subjects at an expense beyond the reach of many. It costs the student more for a 4-year course in chiropractic than to study a 4-year course in medicine. Medical colleges are endowed, state-supported, and tax-protected. Medical students pay less per semester, and the state pays the balance. The NCA is responsible for advocating and supporting this propaganda, this cutthroating of chiropractic. Now let's check the record. I've made some bold statements. Let's check the record and see what it says. The NCA Journal, page after page of medical ads. Attend an NCA convention. Speakers and subjects discussed are largely pro-medical and anti-chiropractic except for name. 95% of the NCA exhibits are medical. They go home pumped full of virus injections of anti-chiropractic, pro-medical theories and failures. They leave with their minds muddled, confused, with medical theories which never worked, don't work now. They are indoctrinated to doubt all things vital to the perpetuation and preservation of chiropractic. The NCA wants our profession to be looked up to, respected, so our people can take a social standing in society, going the way osteopathy has gone. They want legal respectability. They ask legislatures for licenses. They got them. For 30 years, when we were growing, the only respect we wanted or needed was the support and the respectability we gained from the public who had been sick, tried everything in medicine, and then went to a chiropractor, took adjustments, and got well. What more did we need then? And what more do we have a right to have now? Today we are on the legislative grease toboggan, downgrade, because we couldn't be satisfied with public support by doing the one thing medical men could not do, get sick people well. I have a letter dated August 15, 1958, which comes from an NCA delegate in Pennsylvania. Dear Dr. Palmer, I address you on the NCA delegate letterhead because I have fearlessly fought for unity in public relations and because I believe that it is our only chance for survival. If chiropractic is sold to the people and our practitioners find that the demand is for chiropractic, other therapies will tend to disappear. Economic pressure has been the reason for much mixing. Our colleges need to devote more time to chiropractic education. Our profession needs to talk to the people with one voice and one language. While I have sharply been in disagreement with you, I'm still quoting, on many occasions, I have always greatly admired your consistent advocacy of the basic principles of chiropractic. Undoubtedly, you personally have done more to take the message of chiropractic to the people than any other man, dead or alive, perhaps more than any group. The need for action is now more pressing and of greater vital necessity than ever before. Still quoting, if chiropractors everywhere believe in the basic principles of chiropractic, there is no good reason why they cannot agree on unity in action to sell chiropractic to the people. Chiropractic is the one and only thing which all other methods of healing do not possess. It is the one and only thing which makes us distinctively different, the only thing which justifies our existence in the healing arts. We had better come to this realization before it is too late. Signed by Dan W. Poupard, State Delegate of the NCA, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I want to give you a few AMA facts. Apropos of this trick of who is stealing what from whom, let us quote what Richard M. Stallway, Chicago, Illinois, from the Bureau of Investigation of the American Medical Association says, quoting, "Therefore, chiropractic has not changed, but it is doubtful whether this in any way may be construed a change for the better. Rather, isn't it just another attempt by unqualified persons to enter the practice of medicine through the basement?" This year's annual, which was last year, NCA convention was held at the Morrison Hotel in Chicago in July. The convention was organized somewhat like an AMA convention. From the jargon that was being thrown about, had you been transported there suddenly, at first you wouldn't have known whether you were at a medical meeting or a chiropractic meeting. I'm still quoting. There were about 45 commercial exhibits. Among these exhibits were some which previously had been shown at various medical and surgical meetings. Among other recognized medical books were the AMA New and Non-Official Remedies and the Encyclopedia of Surgical Specialties. Oddly enough, there were no chiropractic books to be seen at these booths, only medical and surgical. Such chiropractic instruments as scalpels, hemocytometers, and lancet sets were on display. The regular vitamin and health food products that are usually seen at chiropractic or naturopathic conventions were there. Many of the devices and products on display have been subject to regulatory action by government agencies. Verbal misbranding by the demonstrators was common. The goal of, and I'm still quoting, the goal of the chiropractor is to achieve as soon as possible the stasis osteopathy enjoys today. Standards for approved schools are set forth in the booklet, Educational Standards for Chiropractic Schools. This book, note this book has a great deal in common with the AMA's essentials of approved medical schools. In fact, complete passages have been taken from the AMA publication, and other parts have apparently been paraphrased. There is no doubt that the chiropractors are attempting to give the appearance of providing a sound education in the medical subjects. I'm still quoting. It is apparent from these statements and from the other indications that chiropractic is attempting to evolve into the practice of medicine without restriction. They are relying on propaganda and clever publications to give the impression that they are qualified physicians. It may be extremely difficult for laypersons to tell the difference between a chiropractic school and a medical school if they consider only what the chiropractors themselves claim to be. Chiropractors are attempting to enter into the practice of medicine. They feel they can bring this about legally by increasing the scope of chiropractic licensure acts. Their primary immediate goal seems to be the stasis that osteopathy now enjoys. But even if all their schools should achieve the approved label, it would not change the real state of affairs. From the evidence available, the schools are wholly inadequate and incapable of preparing students for the practice of medicine. If a person desires to assume the responsibilities of the medical care of people, let them enter the field through the front door, not the cellar. The NCA at one time had Jack Hess as their public relations advertising promotion department. He says, because the Charles O. Puffer Company is primarily an advertising agency, they asked Jack Hess in 1955, when they acquired the National Chiropractic Association as a client, to originate all ideas, write all material, and guide the course of that organization on the professional and political level. Still quoting, since that time, Hess performed these duties from his own office. Therefore, he has been a middleman working for a fee and protesting many of the policies of both the National Association and the Illinois Chiropractic Society. Right before the break with Charles O. Puffer, Hess had prepared and originated in its entirety the entire public relations plan for 1958 of the National Association. As usual, there were arguments concerning matters of broad policy. It is a known fact within that organization that Hess disagreed completely with the more rabid and bitter elements and thus incurred their enmity. Hess was ridiculed in 55 when he first pointed out the program of the AMA. Before writing the speeches for many of the directors at a special meeting, the results of that research produced a complete lack of realism. It also produced some very wild ideas for a fratricidal sellout of chiropractors with differing principles. Hess originated the public relations manual, wrote them, and produced their press books. He has originated all their constructive ideas. In fact, he has all his own drafts of all the speeches and subjects at their conventions and can show those portions which were eliminated as being too friendly to other groups. But why this should be singular when there are only two involved is part of the verbal killing off process in which many of these people live. That's quoted from Jack Hess' letter. Now, I would rather be a chiropractor with one simple principle in practice which works and gets sick people well and be called ignorant than be a supra-educated medical man with millions of arbitrary and empiric theories, none of which work or get sick people well. The best evidence and proof is that many leading, progressive, honest medical men are rapidly forsaking much in medicine and are absorbing much in chiropractic, and even though by other names. In those good old days, we received many letters asking for the name and address of a chiropractor, and in those days we could send patients to anybody, knowing they would get an adjustment. Today we receive letters saying, where can I find a chiropractor who will give me an adjustment? There are chiropractors' offices that don't have even an adjusting table. Today, we don't know whom to send inquiries to. Some of our people are one thing today, tomorrow something else, running the gauntlet of the experimentation of medical theories, treatments, and techniques, trying to deliver what they were not educated to give and are incompetent doing what they profess to be. Today we are paying a terrific price for quasi-medical respectability at the expense of murdering and raping chiropractic. Some NCA men prefer medical respectability than to have chiropractic success. I would rather be a chiropractor getting sick people well. Now, in the earlier days, we were educationally free men and women. We had every reason to know what was good, right, which got sick people well. In those early days, many who were sick took adjustments, got well, and became imbued with the high ideals of returning health and life that they received to others who were suffering as they had been. In the earlier days, we professionally were a small handful of rugged pioneers of free people. We could and did serve our fellow men as our consciences dictated. We followed the golden rule, not the rule of gold. In the earlier days, we legislatively were medical slaves, suffering under the yoke and the lash of medical tyranny and domination. Arrested, tried, convicted, branded as criminals, sent to jail, some as long as 1 year at hard labor. Thanks be to the courageous spirit of those days, we had chiropractors of conviction who were willing and ready to pay the price to preserve this principle in practice, to pass on its benefits, serving the sick and dying people who could not and did not get well under medical, legislative, cutthroat controls. Today, educationally, some of our schools are slaves to their fears. They teach what some state boards demand, an endless list of subjects far removed, having no relationship to or with chiropractic. Today, professionally, we have two associations. The ICA, endeavoring to keep our profession free men and women, that they may learn, think, practice unmolested by any NCA handful desiring to dominate and usurp compulsions. Today, our profession is becoming legislative slaves, regimented by an NCA organization that has long lost sight of chiropractic and chiropractors or saving lives of sick people. Today, it is their desire to control, limited by laws, unreasonable state boards, forced to attend a 2-day session in their state to get their license renewed. No longer can you pick when, what you want to do, or where to go to learn to do. Legislatively, it is their intent. You must go where the NCA says, when the NCA says, and listen to what they force you to listen to willy-nilly, whether you like it or not, oppose it or deny it. If you don't, your license will not be renewed. Your practice is destroyed. The sick go on suffering. Those good old days of the chiropractic profession, free to come and go at will, are being destroyed. The NCA in the August 58 journal says, quote, that all states should have educational license renewal legislation, unquote. That means, and takes us back to the medieval, tyrannical days, which smacks too much like forcing a Christian to attend a Buddhist church for 2 days to listen to Buddhist heresy lectures and sermons contrary to his Christian beliefs and faith before he can secure the privilege of getting a renewal of his license to practice his own beliefs and faith in Christianity. The early pilgrims were granted religious freedom. Let's have chiropractic professional freedom also. Now, regardless of what I have advocated then or now, to be right or wrong, I never have requested, suggested, advocated, encouraged, believed in, or asked for any restrictions, legislative or otherwise. From the beginning, I have opposed any kind of regimentation of all that were opposed, be it good or bad, preferring the rights of educational freedom from which the listener could make his choice. Years ago, I saw what has since come to pass, that derogatory interests for commercial aggrandizement have seen fit to strangulate chiropractic and our chiropractors to the detriment of his rights or the rights of the sick to get well. Now, what faults we might have in some respects, we've always opposed any and all legislative control methods. The NCA theory is that within the borders of individual states is all the knowledge he shall get. That within each state is all the knowledge of proficiency and efficiency to learn all that's worthwhile to improve the service of the sick in that state to have his license renewed. Outside of any state, there are institutions of learning that can help him. Now, you may think we are exaggerating the seriousness of these crimes perpetrated and committed today by the NCA. We have an unlimited, constant, statewide, national, and international flow of data coming to our hub of everything for or against chiropractic, involving the rights of chiropractors to practice without molestation. Many a sincere and honest person, inactive, protecting chiropractic and chiropractors, lives a narrow path from his home to his office. He doesn't know what's going on. The literature he gets, he doesn't read. And when we come forth and warn him, he said, oh, well, you're scared. He doesn't know what's going on. Time in May 28, 1958, has this story, and I have the printed copy so that it'll be correct. United States osteopathy last week underwent the most drastic spinal manipulation in its history, designed to give it a straight-backed stance, let it hold its head higher among the nation's healing professions. In the process, the long-revered founding father of osteopathy was gently but firmly shouldered out of the picture. A.T. Still. For generations, osteopathy faithfully followed Still in emphasis on manipulation, de-emphasis on drugs. Last week, at its annual convention in Washington, the American Osteopathic Association booted Still's bones out of its constitution, went medically more orthodox. Its constitution had formerly included this paean: the evolution of osteopathic principles shall be an ever-growing tribute to Andrew Taylor Still. The delegates voted 105 to 16 to drop this and declare simply, the objects of this association shall be to promote the public health, to encourage scientific research, and to maintain and improve high standards of medical education in osteopathic colleges. The 6 such colleges require 3 years of undergraduate college work, then give a 4-year course much like that of conventional medical schools. The graduates are fully licensed to practice as physicians and surgeons in 36 states. DOs are now eligible for appointment as military surgeons, though none has as yet been given the nod by the MDs in these medical corps. AOA members were as drug-happy as any MDs crowding exhibits by pharmaceutical houses. So they're asking for admission now to be recognized by the AMA. Today, this hour is a challenge to us, whether we want to go that same way or not. The NCA, from time to time, or place to place, has claimed a membership of 8,000. We have the membership list, and it is liberally about 4,000. It has been stated that about 50% of this is or was in California. Within the past few months, the California Chiropractic Association has seceded from that affiliation. This would reduce 4,000 to 2,000. It is reported that that list contains names of men and women retired for 10 years or more, and some dead and buried. How many is questionable. It has been told by California chiropractors that this loss has withdrawn about 28% of their income. It is believed there are about 5,000 real and false chiropractors in California. Yet when the NCA held their national convention in Los Angeles, the reports we received were that they had about 200 at their conventions. It is well known that banquets represent about all present, including wives. If pictures are reliable, the banquet picture of the NCA Miami convention exhibits about 150. The ICA, on the contrast, prints a directory, and it is not padded. It lists over 2,000 and has had a substantial and healthy growth each year since its birth. When the ICA held its mid-year board meeting in Los Angeles a year or two ago, its symposium had 600 at the first and over 700 at the second session. So you see there is some contrast. Now, California is a sample of NCA treasonable evasions. That state board, under NCA domination, presented 21 pages, single-spaced, nonsensical rules and regulations, one of which was that before a graduate chiropractor could make application to take examination, to get a license, to give an adjustment to a sick person, he had to deliver 10 babies. Later, under ICA protest, they reduced it to 5 babies. Now it's limited to an observation of 1 baby at an additional cost paid by the applicant to some licensed medical man delivering the baby. The fee usually is $25. Physicians who permit this invasion of their private practice are few, even for a fee. Obstetrics must be taught in a so-called chiropractic college in California as accredited by the NCA. The ICA secured a temporary injunction expunging all these rules and regulations. Although temporary, it has lasted 21 months. 2 members of that chiropractic board, accredited by the NCA, were proctologists. It became necessary to peek in the lower orifices before you could get a license to give an adjustment next to the head. Fortunately, the ICA secured a ruling from the California Attorney General that proctology is not the practice of chiropractic under the California Chiropractic Practice Act. Dr. Una Brown Carey of California offers a unique suggestion for unity. Instead of calling everything medical chiropractic, she suggests if the DC wants to do other things, simply add the conjunctive word and. Example, chiropractic and colonic irrigation, chiropractic and radionics, chiropractic and proctology, or like ham and eggs. Ham from pigs, eggs from chickens, until you have everything listed that you and have. The California Board of Chiropractic Examiners met on August 16th and 17th, and on the 16th, the 3 California chiropractic schools were called before the board. Dr. Montenegro, secretary of the board, stated, it'll be necessary for the chiropractic schools to bring about a program wherein minor surgery and medicine will be taught to students. Sunday, August the 17th, the board sent letters to all California organizations to have an officer appear before the board. Dr. Montenegro outlined that the board proposes to have each organization try to set a fee schedule. He further stated the board will present chiropractic rules to offset the judge's ruling of his former ruling in the suit brought by the California people. Now, we have frequently said that one man behind the saloon bar selling whiskey can addle more minds, pervert more honest people to go crooked, and commit more crimes than 1,000 inactive, passive followers who do nothing but sit around their offices all day. You get me? Well, I'll explain it later on. We have a very fine article by Dr. Pludre as the NCA president in the August Journal. He says, quoting, he called attention to the encroachment of physical medicine upon the chiropractic profession and urged the continued determination to fight the prevention of this encroachment on a unified national scale. A little later on, he says that these things are all right, providing you don't go too far. Then I comment on that and say, if one is right, if it's right for the chiropractors to steal medicine, then it's all right for the medical men to steal chiropractic. If medical men should leave chiropractic alone, then chiropractors should leave medicine alone. Because the sauce for the goose is good applesauce for the gander. Or is it? Our medicine's chiropractic, here's one example. Page 47 of the August 1958 NCA Journal is a full-page ad of Vitaminerals Incorporated, which mentions by name Baldrian and Valerian. The Doctor's Manual Service Company are selling chiropractors a product known as Pasaquil with similar drugs. Baldrian and Valerian are listed as drugs in Potter's Cyclopedia of Botanical Drugs and Davies' Cyclopedia of Medical and Surgical Specialties. It is bad practice and malpractice for the NCA to advertise, encourage, and advocate the use of drugs. It is even worse for chiropractors to buy them and use them and call them chiropractic as advertised and advocated by the NCA. The National Food and Drug Act, passed by Congress June 30th, 1906, says, quote, "The term drug, as used in this act, shall include all medicines and preparations recognized in the United States Pharmacopoeia or National Formulary for internal and external use." This federal statute makes the United States Pharmacopoeia the official guide for drugs, and Valeria is listed as such on page 484 of the 9th decennial revision of this publication. Baldrian is the German name for valerian. For years, the NCA and Vitamin Company have been advertising such products. They and the NCA have stepped beyond decency in their tranquilizer products, on which there can be no question or argument, on which there is an NCA invasion into the field of drugs. This not only violates the NCA definition of chiropractic, but also the Florida Chiropractic Practice Statute, which says, "But chiropractors are expressly prohibited from prescribing or administering to any person any medicine or drug included in materia medica," unquote. Now, they have a definition. Let me see if I can give it to you. Now, this is from a certain college of chiropractic I want to read you. Chiropractic is that branch of the healing arts which deals with the removal of interference with the transmission of life force by a process relating disrelated structures by hand with the dynamic adjustive thrust, and includes the right and duty of using proper sanitary, hygienic, and palliative measures incident thereto, but does not include cutting surgery or the use of drugs. Now, this definition is part right and part wrong, partly exclusive, partly inclusive, partly chiropractic in subterfuge terms, partly medical in intent. It's a slippery, evasive definition to please those who want to be what they desire to be, as well as those who want to be what they are not to be. They're trying to straddle both sides of the fence. Now, here's another example in that same publication, quoting, "Therapeutic equipment for chiropractic, hydrotherapy, heliotherapy, electrotherapy, light therapy, orthopedic surgery, physical therapy, and all other accepted methods of natural treatment. That's quite broad. Dr. Rogers, in the NCA Journal, says, under the title, First National Seminar on Chiropractic Public Relations. The NCA was not the first. The ICA was. Now he's claiming it to be the first. But he does say, all states should have educational license renewal legislation. This definition that they've got. NCA rational definition that appeared in the August issue. The scope of accepted practice. The practice of chiropractic consists of the diagnosing of human ailments by the use of all diagnostic procedures recognized by the various schools of the healing arts. The elimination of the abnormal functioning of the human nervous system by the adjustment of the articulations and adjacent tissues of the human body, the use of which includes, as indicated, of procedures which make the adjustment more effective, including clinical nutrition, psychotherapy, and physiotherapy, but excluding the use of drugs and surgery. Now, if you break this language down, you'll find that all the branches of the healing arts is very broad. When it refers to adjacent tissues, the courts have held that includes all the rest of the human body, because all tissues are adjacent to the spinal column. That's nice. As indicated means anything and everything in medicine can be slyly indicated to make the adjustment more effective. And so you go down the line. Now here's something that's very interesting. One entire page of the August 1958 NCA Journal is devoted to Chiropractic Day. We find these statements, quoted, whereas our practitioners humbly follow the trail of physiological anatomical truths laid down by D.D. Palmer, and whereas the chiropractic profession of America is the proud and zealous guardian of the ethical standards and unselfish dedication to public service fostered by Dr. Daniel Palmer, so forth. D.D. Palmer, in his book, all his life, despised, belittled, ridiculed, and chastised anything and every person who called himself a chiropractor who did all of the things that's in the NCA Journal. And then they humbly beg that you set aside one day for him. Read any page in his book, read anything that he said, and you'll find that he's constantly attacking all this stuff that the NCA is doing. D.D. Palmer fought as we have fought and are fighting to keep chiropractic a separate and distinct philosophy, science, and art. Now, they know that they're destroying things in chiropractic, but the funniest thing to me is they set aside one day to humbly dedicate the honor to D.D. Palmer, and the 364 other days of the year give him hell. Maybe you think I'm bitter. Well, who has a better right to be? Why shouldn't I be? When I see the NCA laud and toast D.D. Palmer one day of the year and then destroy all he discovered and advocated the other 364 days in their publications, conventions, and exhibits, it is my heritage to protect, defend, and preserve my father's brilliant worldwide discovery of the only principle of the cause and cure of all disease, locating the key which restores health. And why shouldn't I be bitter? Mortimer Levine, in that same publication, has a real nice article. It's all right until he gets to the last, and then he says, our own people understand it only as a practice method and not as a philosophy and doctrine. He says, chiropractic will then be truly recognized as the greatest and most effective healing science which has come to bless humanity. This can never come if NCA policies and programs prevail. Well, I could go on indefinitely quoting, citing things in the book, but I think now you've got enough to realize what I'm trying to tell you. Oh, I could go on, but I think you'll get the drift. This thing has either got to stop. This idea of closing up state after state, telling you've got to listen to the things that they put on, or you can't do anything else. They're putting on a seminar in Minnesota, another one in Denver. And everything there will be anti-chiropractic and pro-medical. If you practice in those states, you've got to attend 2 days. You've got to, whether you want to or not, or you won't get your license. And you'll come out of there hopping mad. Think you had to waste 2 days away from your office and got nothing for it. Those are some of the things we're up against. The problem, however, is solely yours. I can't tell you what to do, but unless there is a definite procedure of action upon your part, we are on the grease to motive. I don't want to scare you. I don't want to give you any fears. But I know that someday those things can prevail if they're not stopped. So it behooves you folks in those states to keep in contact with your legislatures, with your legislators, know what's going on, and protest against any restriction of any professional rights. That's up to you. I don't want to prolong this misery because it isn't a pleasant subject. Now, tomorrow night, I'm going to take up a more pleasant subject. I got a title down here for it. Innate and How It Cultivates You. I think that ought to be a good subject. It's always a pleasure to warn you on coming events. I recall once, and I don't know whether you know this or not, some of you old-timers may remember, during the First World War, we had 18,000 people at work on the Rock Island Arsenal, which is an island between here and Rock Island, making war munitions. They would steal all of our best help from all of our factories and offices and stores. An ordinary stenographer that was getting, say, $20, $25 a week, they took her over there and give her $25 a day. Why wouldn't she go? She'd be a fool if she didn't. A foundryman that were getting $20 a day were given $120 a day. And so it went all along. The merchants were stripped of their best help. The result was that they had to get most of their help from our student body. They would work after school hours and nights and Saturdays and Sundays. They didn't get very much because the merchants' income was dropping seriously. The result was that it became a serious issue, and Davenport, Rock Island, Moline were facing bankruptcy. To offset this, they said when a suit of clothes that sold for $20, was raised up to $120 because they figured the people whose wages had been raised could afford to give it. Then the buyers of these three cities said, why should we buy in Davenport? We'll go to Clinton, we'll go to DeWitt, we'll go to Muscatine, we'll go to Burlington, we'll go to Chicago. Sears and Roebuck were shipping the stuff in here by the carloads. Montgomery Ward was shipping in by carloads because their prices hadn't raised. Davenport became known as the second highest priced city to live in the United States. Well, obviously that kept students away from school, away from us. I didn't like that. I told all the students that worked downtown, what I want you to do is to keep an itemized and sworn-to list of the things as they originally were priced, as they were gradually being stepped up to unreasonable prices, the same goods, the date, the store, the name. And then I want you to give them to me. We compiled 5,000 of those affidavits on practically every line of business in this community. Then I went to the merchants and I said, I want 400 of you to come up to a dinner that I shall give in our cafeteria. And that dinner cost me $5 a plate, which was some dinner in those days. That's when $5 was $10 now. Then after the dinner, we went up on the roof garden. And I talked to the merchants. I said, you're all facing bankruptcy. There's only one way to save your bacon. Come down in your prices. Well, we ain't going to do it. Ain't going to do it. I said, all right. I'll tell you what to do. I'll buy a page of the newspapers tomorrow night, and I'll print some of these affidavits which proves just how you're gouging the people of this community. I've got 5,000 up. And he said, oh, well, but we don't want that. The two newspaper men got up and said, we won't sell you space. I said, that's all right. I anticipated that. I've got a radio station right across the street that I can talk to the whole community instantly. I don't need your newspapers. But I said, what do you think will happen when I begin reading some of these affidavits over the air? Well, I said, that'll put us out of business. And I said, you're being put out of business anyhow right now. Which way do you want to go? Well, they got mad. And I had little wooden coffins made. And in the coffin, I had a little hammer, 10-cent hammer. And on the lid, what's that Greek saying? Requus squat in pax, rest in peace. Let the hammer, the knocker, rest in peace. And I gave every one of those little coffins. Well, I remember it ended up in a bedlam. Jim First, Harry Vedder, Steve Durick, and some of the other of our faculty came and said, PJ, we quit. We're resigning right now. I said, listen, boys, go to the back door and say good night to our guests. We'll discuss this tomorrow. You know what happened? The next day, each of the newspapers put on 8 additional pages announcing reductions in prices anywhere from 50 to 80%. And the battle had been won. Now, you recall in those days, I was under no obligations to this man's town. Every dollar that we brought in, they were under obligations to me too. And I was independent. A free thinker, I could do as I pleased. They wasn't bringing any money to me. They was taking it all away from us. I won that battle. Today, I am respected in this town as the savior of the commercial lives of this community. That's my reputation. You know that from the spirit that Earl Ackerman shows you down the Black Hawk Hotel. Earl don't do what he does because it's business. He's doing it out of personal friendship for the man that he loves and respects. Now that calls for fearlessness, earnestness, sincerity, honesty of purpose. Having a straight objective and staying with it throughout the years if necessary. That's what we need more of. The mere fact that you adjust backbone is no indication that you have any. I remember one man came from a certain school, I won't mention it. He sat down and he said, "Oh, BJ, it's terrible. It's terrible." Cried on my shoulders. And after it's all over, I said, "Well, what are you doing about it?" "Oh, nothing." I said, "Well, that'll correct it very quickly." I gave him a lecture for 2 hours. I think possibly it might have done him some good. Well, be that as it may. Now, here's a program that's being carried on consistently. It's going to be up to you. I'll do all that I can, save this profession. And I'm not saving it because of myself. I'm really not saving it so much for you. I am saving it for the right of those millions of sick people out there to get well. They are the ultimate objective. The ultimate buying objective of a sick person is to get well. Your ultimate selling objective should be to get him well. And I hope you are. You know, sometimes I'm in a position where I can say things perhaps nobody else can. I was in the room the day chiropractic was born. I saw the little baby ushered in, and oh, what a brat it was. You fill up one end and wet at the other end. I mention that merely to show, down through all these years, I have consistently stuck to that one principle in practice. Never gotten away from it. And that's what wins the respect. Like this man Poupard, I've never met him, I don't know him, but he respects me. And I'd rather have their respect for my consistency without their love than their love without their respect for not being consistent. And I think they do. I'm the most hated man in the profession and the most loved. Now, tomorrow night, we're going to talk about NA. Now we're getting back on solid ground, our ground. Okay, good night.